I mentioned before the break Marvin Charles, who is the founder and executive director of a ministry called DADS, but he's also brought with him William Hughes, who is actually a former client, and he's now the vice president there at DADS, and Richard Humphreys is also with us. He's their board president. So I've got all the top brass here from DADS. But I wanted to ask Marvin to start and share just an incredible story, because your story was on Good Morning America, wasn't it?
Correct. Yes, it was.
And tell us a little bit about that story. And I won't even set it up. I'll just let you share it.
Well, in 1999, I came home from work and received a phone call from a lady who I thought was a telemarketer, which in fact she was a search consultant, and she informed me that she was looking for Marvin Lewis Charles because a woman had paid her $400 to find me. Well, that woman was my mother, who I had not seen. That happened when I was 43 years old, and I had not seen my mother. I grew up in the foster care system. So when she told me that my mother was looking for me and she found me, the process usually takes like 10 days, 2 weeks. She has to notify her and then send her a letter and all that. And when she told me that my mother was only living a few blocks away from me, I told her, no, I needed to see her like right then and there. Yeah. So she allowed me to drive to her house and sign the papers. So I grabbed my wife and my kids, and we went there. And then we came and went to my mother's house. And I had a sister and a niece. I actually had another sister who wasn't there, and two brothers that I had never known anything about. So, and
you were put into the foster care system because you were born when your mom was only 14 years old. Is that right?
Correct. My mother, my grandmother, and here's where it was kind of crazy. My grandmother was pregnant with my uncle at the same time my mother was pregnant with me.
Oh, my goodness.
And they were on state assistance. My grandmother was on state assistance. And at that time, in the 50s, you could not have two pregnant folks in the house at the same time. And one being young, they just, as soon as she had the baby 6 months later, took the baby from her, the state did, and put me up for adoption. Shortly after that, I asked her about my father, and she said, she gave me his name. She said he lives in Oakland, California. I haven't talked to him in about 40 years, but that's where he's living. So she did a search for him, and we found him. He had had a stroke and was living in a convalescent home, a senior citizen convalescent home. But I went to visit my father, and two of my sons went to visit my dad with me, and that was a great reunion. Well, shortly after that, like within a month, my mother went down to visit him, and they spent some time together. Then he asked her to marry her, and she said yes. So this whole family. I remember I was in treatment in 98. I had a drug and alcohol problem for a lot of years. And in 98, I went into treatment, and I did a stint in treatment and was beginning to get my life together. I had kids, and my kids were in foster care. So I really recreated the same thing in my children's life as it was going on in my life. And so I prayed a prayer to God. I said, help me put my family back together again. But I was just talking about my children and my girlfriend who became my wife. And then we began to create this foundational home for our family. But I had no idea that God was going to open the door and bring in my mom and dad. And I remember standing in front of a family reunion with about 200 people. And I was thinking to myself, man, their blood runs through my vein. And I spent a lifetime as a kid growing up wondering if there was such thing like that for me.
Wow. So then that experience of that reconciliation with your own birth family then led you to be inspired, and God gave you this vision to help other families, right?
No question. My wife, Jeanette, and I sat down we had went to New York and went to Germany and did television just practically all over the world. And then when the dust settled down, we sat in our living room one day and we said, there were people we had got high with, we had did time with, we had did crime with, who were facing some of the same issues that we were facing. And we wanted to know, how could we help them? How could we take the experience of navigating the CPS system, child support system, all these systems that were there. We wanted to encourage people on that it was possible to navigate, possible to restore your families, possible to live a normal life. It took a lot of work, but we wanted to help them do that.
What a great vision. And William, you former client of DADS. Tell us a little bit about your story. Gosh, I wish we had more time, but so kind of encapsulate your story and share it with us, would you?
Well, I met Marvin back in 2005. I came down there because word on the street was that dads would get you out of child support. And so and I was freshly sober, and I was really, trying to make a better way out of my life. But so I got there, and I remember coming on a Thursday night, and there was this group of men meeting in the back room, and I kept wanting to meet with Marvin, and he kept saying, well, little brother, I can't see you right now because I'm with somebody, but if you just go back in that little room and just hang out with those guys, I'll get to you in a minute. And next thing you know, it was like 3 years later, and I had been meeting in that room doing Bible study for 3 years, and we had not even worked on my child support. And now I was paying child support, and I don't know, to me, DADS is a place that taught me that it's okay to have hope, and it's okay to be a responsible citizen and do the right things and things like that. And so, I don't know, I just kind of fell in love with the place, and then I started doing, maintenance around the place and mopping every week and taking out garbage and whatnot, and decided to go back to school and get a degree, and I'm doing IT now, work for Costco Corporate. And mind you, I'm a person with a 3-time felon with 17 aliases,
Wow.
And today my life is upside down different. And in fact, kind of similar to Marvin, I remember we were doing a presentation down in California, and I was sitting in my bed because my father had just emerged back into my life based on some things that I was doing in ministry for free for a church. And we were down in the area where my son, that I hadn't been a father to like 12 years, right? And I remember looking up at the ceiling, not being able to sleep because this fatherhood thing had gotten so deep into me, but I wasn't being a dad completely to all of my children. And I remember him and Jeanette going with me to meet my father for the first time in like 30 years in Palm Springs. And, just something happened to me in that trip. And since then, it has just been a crazy ride to the point where I'm now the vice president of the board.
Wow.
I mean, really. So, yeah, I'm very grateful.
That's a wonderful story. And my goodness, before I came on the air today, because I had 2 hours of guests, and my thought was that my theme for the day was hope and change.
Yes, sir.
And the reality is that hope and change is not about some political agenda, but it's about what God can do in our lives when He gets hold of us.
Amen.
Tell us about DADS.
I'm the suit in the organization that works real hard to make sure that these ministry stories of transformation that you just heard are repeated time and time again.
One of the things that we say around DADS is one of the major components is fatherlessness. And one of the things that we say, fatherlessness is like AIDS. If you know anything about the AIDS virus, you know that AIDS doesn't kill you. What it does is it breaks down your immune system and allows you to catch an infection. And the infection is usually what causes your demise.
Right.
Well, we feel the same way about fatherlessness. Fatherlessness, it doesn't kill the family, but what it does is it opens the family up for infection, like teenage pregnancy, at-risk youth behavior, teenage crime. And that's usually what kills the family. And so we've been kind of marching down that trail. And to some degree, we're starting to get a lot of young men that are coming through our door. Young men who say, I'm a father of a child, but I don't know what to do. I don't have any communication skills, or I don't have a job because when I first got out into the streets or into the world, I went by way of the streets, fast money, and now I'm tired of that's taking big chunks out of my life, and I don't want my child to go down that same road. And so, I find myself really ministering to a lot of kids who don't know which way to go. We are also in one of the high schools, alternative high schools in the inner city, and we've been there for about 2 years working with young men who are on the margin. This is the last stop on the road. And so we've been able to take some of the guys whose lives have been turned around and go up into the schools. We've named these guys Cubs, which is named after a mentor of mine, Connie Jacobson.
Oh, yeah. I
we
know
call
Connie.
them the Conrad's Urban Brothers.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. So that's kind of, one of the things that has really been helping us to reframe our thought process around.
Yeah.
One of the things is simply this. A lot of young kids that are growing up today, or their parents that grew up, we left bad impressions on them, right? By our behavior. And then what we did was, when we got our lives together, we grabbed our families and went off to the burbs, right?
Yeah.
Well, our first stop should have been on the corner to say, look, guys, it don't work. I know what you saw me do, but it didn't work. It leads to jail, drugs, and death. And you don't want that.
Right. Well, and I think you bring up a really important point with Connie. I mean, and people who don't know Connie don't know that he's a white guy.
Exactly.
And I think so often for those of us, as I was talking earlier with Steve, from across the bridge or from even just down the road, we think, well, what can I do to help in this community, because I'm a different color, I'm a different race, I'm a different background. And, I mean, Connie's a perfect example of someone who...
Man, this guy modeled fatherhood to me. I didn't have a father. I didn't know anybody. This guy opened his heart up and his house up, and he let me take a look at it. He let me see what it looked like. And then he befriended me. We built a relationship. And then on that is when, as me being a father, and I call myself a new father. It wasn't that I had new children, but I had children that I was not accustomed to being around, nor me. And so what I did was, man, I just kind of burglarized some of the tools I heard him talk about using in his own family. I figured if it worked for him, it could work for me. All I need to do is try it. So those are huge opportunities.
That's right.
As far as I'm
That's
concerned.
wonderful. William, did you have a story that you wanted to share?
Just real briefly, I was also mentored by Connie, and one thing Connie taught me that was really valuable is to not be a boyfriend, be a husband. And I took that road with my lovely bride, and that relationship really has taught me a lot. And so now, some of the things that I have been blessed to do is be a part of her family. I mean, she had a couple nephews that were, like on meth and all this stuff. And we honored one of her nephews at our latest banquet because he's now in college and he's off drugs. And just today, I'm sitting with Marvin and I get a phone call from him, and he said, hey, guess who I got with me? My brother, Kyle. Now, Kyle, I brought to Union Gospel Mission about 2 years ago, and he walked away. And so here he is ministering to his brother. And he's like, I talked to him on the phone. He's like, Brandon's going to take me to go get my ID. And he said he's going to pray for my GED. And I just think I want to give another crack at this. Wow. And, and that is, I mean, for me and my lovely bride to be a part of, my life and being able to reach out to even her extended family. It's been amazing to be in a position. But that stuff Connie taught me to just walk with and to have coffee with and to just build relationship with. And as a result, here's this guy seeing me do that. And now he wants to do that with his brother and so on. So
we've got less than a minute. So Richard, tell us about the future, where God's leading things.
Well, what we're trying to do is perpetuate the change that you just heard about. Guys who come from nowhere, turn their lives around, and bring other guys with them. So we're moving now to move into Tacoma. We've got an office that we've had there for the past 3 years. And we hope to replicate what we've been doing in Seattle and Tacoma.
Wonderful.
Of course, as always, as the board president, I'm going to tell you it takes money.
It does. It does. You bet it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
AboutDads.org
AboutDads.org
is their website. I am Garrick Pang. I have just been so blessed to serve today as your fill-in host here on Live from Seattle. at 8:20 a.m. KGNW. I will be back with you Thursday and Friday, and I'm looking forward to working with these gentlemen. They know that I work with Stronger Families. We have Oxygen for Your Relationships is the name of what we do. And so we're looking forward to partnering together with you to bring life and oxygen to these men.
No question.
Thank you for your work. AboutDads.org. Check it out. Engage with them. We look forward to seeing you down the road.
Amen.